Hello again. This time I'm going over my favorite way to make armor for my minis by using actual metal. I'm continuing with the wolf character whose armature I made in the previous video in this series. As you can see, I added some clay to the armature. This isn't the final layer, so I just put this layer on quickly and skipped filming it. But I will say that getting a good approximation of the final form is still important. The metal I use for armor is soldering wire. Here's what I use specifically. I don't know exactly what's in it, except that this wire is lead-free. No lead poisoning and higher melting point, both advantages here. So I need to get this wire flattened and spread out, and it's going to spread out much more than the thinner steel wire I used for the sword. To do that, I have an improvised anvil here. The square I'm using for this, I have cleaned the paint off with a grinder, don't want bits of paint embedded in what I'm hammering. I'm using a smaller finishing hammer for this, lots of small strikes and turning the wire to strike both sides. Patience works better here than brute force. I'll often turn on something to watch, sit back, and just tap away at this. Here's what it should look like. You want to get this really thin so you can bend it with your fingers without so much force that you end up cracking the clay figure. At this point, it should cut quite easily with scissors. I'm going to start the armor out with a bunch of thin strips. In this case, I measured them out 3 millimeters each, marking the metal by just scratching it. The strips cut very easily, and I'm using straight edge scissors to cut with longer, straighter motions. I attach the plates using shoe glue in the center of the plate. When it's dried a bit, I gently bend the plates around to fit the shape. You can put the plates edge to edge or create a slight overlap like I'm doing here. With a humanoid, I would want these strips to go all the way around, starting at the belly and working up to the chest. You can start the arms and legs like this too. With a four-legged wolf, though, I picture the armor as more of a shell that covers the top and front of the body, which means I can be less accurate in measuring the plate's lengths because I'm not getting them all the way around and meeting up on the other side. Practically, a wolf might want armor that covers the legs and head, but for aesthetic considerations, you can put your wolf in bikini mail if you want. And after the glue is dried, is a good time to trim the armor a little here and there for a better fit. With the legs and chest below the neck, I'm just seeing what fits. These plates are soft enough that I don't need to really shape them much beforehand. I can just find their shape right on the figure, and as long as I can get the tips of my scissors in there, I can trim any sharp corners I want to round out. As with the strips on the back, I'm just finding a fit for the armor on the legs. I'm not going all the way down the legs, just giving a base over which I'll later lay the chest and shoulder plates. I'm still just eyeballing the size and shape of these plates that are going on the chest. I didn't trim the corners on the longer plate, which might have looked nicer, but the shoulder plates will be going over those corners anyways. With the chest and leg plates figured out, I finished the back of the shoulders and neck, again just putting on some more of those 3 millimeter strips. Where I just eyeballed things with the armor so far, if you want your cuts a bit more precise, then I find the soldering metal not as easy to write on as I would like. So here I'm using painter's tape to give me a writing surface. These circles are going onto the shoulders, which I felt looked pretty bare. As you'll see, layering the plates works really well for armor. You don't need to get everything fitting tight edge to edge. Just build it out however you want and figure it out as you go. As some finishing touches, I'm just lightly scratching the armor. What I'm doing here just makes it seem a little more worn, and I usually also scratch the edges of the plates to make them a little shinier, which makes them pop out a bit from the duller looking plates. He's looking pretty good now already, but keep an eye out for the next video where I'll wrap this sculpt up, adding his top layer of fur. And thank you for watching. Please keep an eye out for the conclusion to this sculpt.